Generally speaking, for a villain to monologue, it's probably not a good idea. A monologue is when a character delivers a one-sided speech, usually revealing their intentions, motives, and the outcome they are striving for. But it's been shown numerous times that when a monologue is delivered, the opposite usually happens, and it ends in the one delivering the monologue to lose in the coming struggle. But Star Wars has changed the dynamic of a monologue to not spell doom for the one monologuing. Yes, they usually meet their fate in the end, but their plans aren't foiled immediately following their speech. And their end is usually much later, even years later. Today we'll look at some great monologues in Star Wars storytelling and how it didn't mean instant loss for the character. I will also show one instance of a bad monologue in Star Wars. Not bad in terms of bad writing, but bad that it didn't end well for the character, and it was a shock to the audience. If you love Star Wars as much as I do, or you're just a casual fan wanting to talk about the greatest franchise ever created, then you've come to the right place. Because Star Wars is all I talk about, and I upload new content whenever I can. So, if you have an interest or love for Star Wars, go on and hit the subscribe button and join this growing channel for deeper discussions, theories, and Star Wars lore. Each one of you is appreciated much more than you will ever know. Also, leave a comment on the video. I do read them all. Even if I don't have time to respond to everyone, you are heard. Now, let's monologue. I hope it doesn't mean certain doom for me. Star Wars is riddled with monologues, but when we see monologues in other television and film, we tend to think, here we go, this is the end for this character. In the speech, the giver divulges what they're doing, why they're doing it, and the desired outcome. And usually there's a devious scheme behind it, and the monologue only has a sprinkle of truth. The rest is delusional. But in Star Wars, it's different with the villains. The villains actually tell the truth, and the heroes don't believe it, because the speakers are, simply put, villains, and they're told villains always lie. When we first saw The Empire Strikes Back in 1980, Darth Vader gives Luke Skywalker the "I am your father" speech. Although it's a short monologue, it still tells Darth Vader's true intentions. In order for Luke to survive the duel, he must join Vader to bring order to the galaxy, with hopes that Luke will make the right choice. It's the only reason Vader hasn't cut him down. Now, when we first saw it, one would think, oh no, Darth Vader is going to die. But it was the opposite. He cuts off Luke's hand. Although Luke didn't perish, he was badly beaten, and Darth Vader walked away with nothing more than a scratch to his shoulder armor. Instead of Darth Vader losing after his monologue, we actually get the sense of how powerful he really is. He seriously could have ended Luke right there. But that wasn't his goal. Make Luke question his teachings and the ones who trained him, put doubt in his mind as to who he is and how honest Obi-Wan Kenobi and Yoda really were. It was meant as a long-term tactic that would hopefully turn Luke to Vader's side. Immediate results were preferable, but bringing down the new Jedi in training from within would also be a success that would end the new Jedi Order that could arise, and give Darth Vader the help he needed in defeating Emperor Palpatine. Darth Vader told Luke the truth. He was Luke's father, and there was no lying about his plans. He was fed up with his master, Emperor Palpatine, mistreating him, and he needed to end him. He also had every intention of finishing Luke's training, although on the other side of the Force. It was Obi-Wan Kenobi who lied to Luke, the former hero of the Clone Wars. I know a lot of people won't want to hear that. In Attack of the Clones, we get another monologue. Yeah, I'm going in order of release, not chronology. Anyways, Count Dooku, aka Darth Tyrannus, has Obi-Wan Kenobi captive. He tells Obi-Wan that the Senate is being controlled by a Sith Lord. Obi-Wan is rescued, then alongside his Padawan Anakin Skywalker, he duels Dooku, but Kenobi loses, or gets knocked out. I guess you consider that losing. This isn't the way it should go, though. Dooku should have been killed, because he monologued just prior to that. Even when Dooku is finally disposed of, it wasn't the one he made the speech to that disposed of him, and it was about 3 years later. This turns the traditional sequence of events of a monologue on its head. But it's also important to note that Count Dooku is seen as the villain. but he didn't lie in his monologue. As Darth Vader wanted Luke to join him, Dooku wanted Obi-Wan to help him. And he was honest about what was really going on. Yet Obi-Wan Kenobi dismissed the ramblings of Count Dooku. Why? Because Dooku was the villain of the story. Okay. That brings us to the artist formerly known as Darth Maul. Recently, just Maul. Where do I begin with this guy? He has so many monologues, it's hard to keep track. But let's skip ahead to the speech he presents to Ahsoka Tano during the Siege of Mandalore. He gives a well thought out and convincing reasoning as to why Ahsoka should join him against the Sith in charge, Darth Sidious. How Sidious has been in control of everything from the beginning, how the current power status is about to shift, and justice is just a construct of the current power holders. Remember, Jedi are the guardians of peace and justice, and they are about to cease to exist. So the idea of justice is about to be altered, and Ahsoka actually believes Maul and will join him after answering one question she has. Well, she doesn't like the answer and instead engages Maul. A lightsaber fight ensues and Ahsoka captures Maul. But this is another example of the villain telling the truth. It's true, his reasons for being honest are for his own power, but he tells the truth of what's going on behind the scenes. It's interesting to also note that this is a different dynamic than the traditional monologue, whereas the hero believes the speaker, even if just for a moment. Usually, they're written off as warped or crazy, but Ahsoka feels the truth coming from him. Even when he tells her of Anakin's turn to the dark side, he is being honest. She closed her ears at that point, then wrote him off as crazy. Maul also loses the battle as is traditional. However, he escapes later and lives another 19 years or so. Why did Ahsoka not believe Maul after he told her about Anakin? Because he is the perceived villain. And she didn't think that kind Anakin Skywalker that she knew could do such horrible things. I'm not going to go into every monologue in the Star Wars universe, sorry, but I'll go on and skip ahead to the Andor series. This speech has instantly become a classic. When Lani Jung asks Luthen Rael what he has sacrificed for the cause, which he demands so much sacrifice of others for, Luthen responds in one of the best monologues to come from recent visual media, possibly ever. And at the surface, it doesn't look as though he is divulging his plans or reasoning for why he is using so many people as chess pieces. Yet he actually does. When you listen closely, he knows he isn't going to survive, thus sacrificing himself for the cause, eventually. He has given up on everything else for his belief in the rebellion. He even intends to sacrifice others in order to achieve victory and keep key players safe. This is one of the best monologues ever because it completely upends the status quo. Luthen isn't in immediate danger. He doesn't have an adversary cornered nor captured, and he doesn't have ill will toward the one he is speaking to. In fact, both parties go their separate ways and all is forgiven when the monologue's over. Albeit Lani Jung is a bit shaken up and scared, but Luthen gives the truth. He isn't a villain per se, but he does have a plan that will result in the deaths of many people, and he tells that. His reasoning? He's lost everything 15 years prior. Now, whether that something is his sanity, his spark of light, or even the possibility his family has been lost remains to be seen, but he does tell of loss. The magic of this delivery of the speech, his heart is in it, and everything he says is believable. The twist in the status quo is that there is no real perceived danger on either side in this situation. Why do we believe him? Because he isn't seen as a villain in the story, as of yet. Okay, that's it for the monologues in Star Wars that changed the way we view those giving the speech. But I did promise one monologue that is so traditional that it reverts back to breaking the mold of how Star Wars has handled these speeches. But there's a twist on the classic way of delivering monologues in this one. I'm not saying it's a bad monologue, just different. Not just in traditional sense, but okay, you'll see what I mean here in a second. The monologue in question is that of Supreme Leader Snoke. He and Kylo Ren have Rey captive, and it's time for Rey to be ended. He goes on about light and dark, then tells a fanciful little narrative of what's going on in Kylo Ren's mind. He tells exactly how he sees him killing Rey in the coming moments. Yet, it isn't Rey that Kylo's concentrated on. It is his master, Snoke. And in a flash, Snoke is cut in half in the middle of his cute little speech. For someone who thinks so highly of his insights, looks like Snoke himself needs a bit more training. And the reason this guy needed to be wrong is because he was doing evil just to do evil. There was no grand reasoning as to why the Jedi and the New Republic should be ended, other than he didn't like them and he wanted power. But this monologue is still different than traditional speeches, whereas the villain is killed in the middle act of a trilogy and in the middle of his own monologue. The dude didn't even get to finish. Generally, the villain doesn't get his comeuppance until the climax near the end of the story, so this caught us completely off guard. It isn't a bad thing. If you're wanting to shock viewers, then this is one way to do it. So it seems Star Wars has found a way to manipulate monologues into something we haven't seen before. With each one, it gets better, with the most recent being that of Luthen Rael to Lonnie Jung, and another that I didn't mention being Andy Serkis's character Kino Loy to the inmates of Narkina 5, as he implores them to stand and fight against their captors. But that speech is one that I want to do an entire video on. It deserves that much time. I know I didn't include some great monologues, but if there's one in particular you would like to focus on, leave it in the comments below. I'd love to hear it and break it down. And on your way out, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and like the video to help grow this channel even further. This is Gerald, a Star Wars fanatic, wishing you all great health, happiness, and peace. Thank you all for watching, and remember, this is the way, the only way. Oh, and by the way, when I say the only way, I'm talking about positivity in the Star Wars community, not my channel.